closer to the big game on Saturday against Wake Forest. So we're going to start previewing the Demon Deacons and how they match up against Syracuse, go over some keys. Plus, we'll look ahead at Syracuse's challenging ACC schedule the rest of the way. That's all coming up.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen with us every single weekday. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Also check us out on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. We're always tweeting out games, breaking news there. Stay updated on all things Orange over on our Twitter page there. So Tim, Leonard, Tyler Aki today. And Ty, we were talking off air before we started this podcast about Syracuse's schedule. We haven't really talked about this a whole lot because we've been so focused on the games. But man, we just ran through the teams, and there's been some stuff out there in The Athletic and different articles about it. And it really is a gauntlet the rest of the way. I don't think enough has been made about how tough this ACC schedule is for Syracuse, which is weird to say because we've been the first to say it all year. The ACC has not been good this year as a whole, but just our luck, somehow Syracuse has drawn kind of maybe the 7 best teams remaining in the ACC on the rest of their schedule.
So their final 7 opponents here, when you look at, and you kind of brought it up there, when you look at a lot of power rankings, these are, in some order, these are 1 through 7 in the power rankings. And not just that, they have a combined record of 27-8 as well, these final 7 opponents. It's not going to be easy for this team. The Athletic, they actually do a coaching hot seat update every single week. And Dino Babers' name has been on there. And at the beginning of the season, you would have thought that he was firmly on the hot seat as a coach that could be fired from his university. And if anything, these first 5 games have sort of tempered that and cooled off the temperature a little bit. His temperature check right now says pretty warm per The Athletic. At the beginning, I would have guessed it would have said hot. But the little blurb that he has here, he's gotten off to a decent start, going 3-2 with a nice win over Malik Willis and Liberty, but then lost to a winless FSU. Overall, he's 27-38. He has a big buyout and probably is in decent shape, although the combined records of their remaining 7 ACC opponents are 27-8. There's also some pressure on athletic director John Wildhack.
Yeah.
So that lends you to believe, given what's left on the schedule, 0-7 is not out of the realm of possibility. It just isn't.
Yeah, which is, I don't think that's going to happen, but they're probably not going to be favored in any of these games. And I'll just run through, we were talking about this earlier, but the 7 remaining teams, you got versus Wake this weekend. They're the only undefeated team in the ACC left. They're the highest ranked team. I think, again, they could beat Wake. I'm not trying to scare people here, but this is just the fact of the matter. Clemson on a Friday night at home after that. On the road at Virginia Tech, who's been a little bit up and down, but overall a good team. That's a tough place to play. October 30th at home against BC. That's the homecoming game. Maybe that's going to be the closest spread remaining, but BC just challenged Clemson. They only have 1 loss this year. They beat Mizzou. They're a pretty good team despite losing their quarterback. At Louisville, November 13th. At NC State, who's ranked right now, November 20th. And then the final game is versus Pittsburgh, who, yes, lost to Western Michigan, but outside of that, they've looked really good. And every time I look up at a Pittsburgh score, they've scored another touchdown. Kenny Pickett is going nuts.
Have you seen? I haven't seen the latest stats, but I know entering last week, he had a 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Jeez.
He's going to put together some sort of Joe Burrow season and maybe go in the first round this year.
Also, how old is that dude? He is.
This has got to be 6 years, right? Trevor Cooney of football.
When we were in school, Kenny Pickett was a veteran, and I'm not saying we're old, but it feels like we've been watching him, and I'm sure a lot of fans.
We've graduated. We'll put it that way. He was old, and we had graduated. I'm pretty sure he was older than me while we were in school.
He's 24, 25? It feels like he's been there for 15 years, but he's definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. That's the last game for Syracuse. So, look, I think they're probably going to win a game the rest of the way. I'm not trying to panic people here, but I tweeted something out after the Florida State game saying maybe bowling's a realistic possibility. And that was kind of before I processed this schedule. I still think Syracuse has played well. They're showing some stuff to us. The offense should only get better here. And look, anything can happen in one football game, but I don't know. That schedule, the more I look at it, the more concerned I am.
If you had to rank the 3 most winnable games on the schedule,
yeah, that's a good exercise.
Right now, it's really tough because I'm looking at it right now. Like, you can say Clemson all you want. At the end of the day, they're still Clemson. Okay,
sure.
This team's got a chip on their shoulder. They're tired of being disrespected. So, for people who think Clemson's one of the 3 easiest wins on the schedule, if you think Clemson's one of the 3 easiest wins on the schedule, the team is probably not winning another game, right? Like,
yeah, it's tough. I think BC would be number 1.
Home against BC, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is still,
it's tough. Look, it's tough to take Pitt. I mean, they do have the loss to Western Michigan this year, but Pitt is kind of like Wake Forest in a sense, where you've got a really, really strong offense. You just don't have the defense that can go step for step with you. And that to me is, I guess it leaves the door open in a degree. And listen, that game's at home too. I mean, who knows? That might be Dino Babers' last game as head coach for Syracuse. It seems like the players like him. It could be like the Scott Schaefer game, which I think was against Pitt, where they kicked the game-winning field goal and they carried him off on his shoulders, even though they already knew it was his last game. So it could be one of those situations again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the more you look at the schedule, the more you just wish that they picked up a win at Florida State. If we're talking about bowling and the odds of going bowling, that may have been a must-have because things can change, certainly. I mean, maybe Kenny Pickett's hurt when they play him on November 27th. That's so far away that it could be a different Pitt team by that
point. Or
point.
Opts out. You never know.
Right.
I mean, you see that happen with these players.
Yeah. And 5 weeks ago, I would have said at Florida State, ooh, that's a tough game. And now after this week, I would have said that is their easiest game remaining on the schedule. So things can change here. But I would say BC, Pitt at home, and maybe you could say Wake Forest at home here this Saturday is the 3 easiest games. I think it's a toss-up between Wake or Clemson, depending on how you feel about them. To me, Clemson, I guess we're catching them at a spot where they're still sort of figuring things out. So maybe I'd put them ahead of Wake right now. But I think by the time the season wraps up, Clemson is going to get back to being closer to Clemson a little bit.
Yeah, I would maybe throw Virginia Tech in there just because that's one of those teams that you could get in a bit of a rock fight with. You're not going to need some spectacular offensive performance to beat VT, but that game's on the road too. Things can get wacky. The Coastal is always a crazy division every single year. I mean, the fact of the matter is you need 3 wins to get to a bowl game. In these final 7 games, do you see 3 wins? I mean, we laid out that 0-7 is a real possibility. I think 1-6 is the strongest of all of the outcomes here for the remaining 7 games.
Yeah.
Pick out the 3 wins. Pick out the 3 wins. I think it's very tough to do. A lot of things would have to go right.
Right. I would say the over-under would be like 1.5 for the remainder.
For wins. I think that's perfectly set.
Maybe some juice on the under there. But we're also, we might be overreacting a little bit because Virginia Tech, they played Richmond and they looked terrible. Like all these teams can look bad any given game. And it's still the ACC, which in general is not good this year. So even at Louisville on November 13th, I know we got spanked by them last year. I've liked what I've seen from Louisville so far, but that game's so far removed that maybe that's just a different Louisville team at that stage. So it's not unrealistic to think they could go bowling still. It's just the schedule doesn't line up great for them doing so. I would put the bowling chances at maybe like 15-20% right now when I look at that schedule.
Yeah, I'm probably like in the 10 to 15% range with you there. Louisville, I think, might be the most underrated team in the ACC right now, too. I mean, look at who their losses are to. You've lost to Ole Miss, neutral site opening week. Ole Miss has looked fantastic. They have one of the Heisman frontrunners right now. And you've lost to Wake Forest, who is the highest rated team in the ACC right now.
Beat UCF on that wild play. Yeah. And they've been close. I mean, Wake was a 3-point game. They lost on the last second field goal. And we've been talking about Wake this week. They're a good team. They're the only undefeated team remaining in the ACC.
Yeah. And the problem for me, and we'll talk about it a little bit with Wake Forest too, but we haven't really seen Syracuse go up against some offensive juggernauts. I think the closest thing to that would be Liberty, but Liberty had a quarterback. They didn't really have a lot of other weapons on the outside. Wake Forest, Louisville, they've got some of those weapons on the outside that can make plays happen for you. And that's what I'm worried about. They also have offensive lines that I think are a little bit better than Liberty's as well.
All right, guys. So there are a few things in life that are just not fun to talk about. One of them is excessive sweating. You know, when you're sweating through your shirts for no reason, it's embarrassing. No one wants to deal with that. No one wants to worry about what they have to wear in the morning just because they don't want to worry about pit stains if they got a big interview when they're speaking in public. Some people can't help it. They sweat through their shirt. But now listen, I know this isn't life or death for something, but SweatBlock is a stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. This is the way to fix this with the SweatBlock antiperspirant wipes. You simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed. The next morning, you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. Tyler and I have tried these. It's been huge for me when I've been out in the heat in the North Carolina summers here. I know it sounds too good to be true, but I literally only have to use SweatBlock once or twice a week. It keeps me dry the entire time. There's no more pitting out, no more picking my shirts based on which one will hide sweat better. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with our promo code LOCKEDON or at an Amazon or a local CVS. All right, so getting into Wake a little bit more here, and we're going to preview them on tomorrow's show as well. The more I dig into their stats, I mean, they're a solid team, definitely offensive-minded for sure. The parts that scare me a little bit is they don't turn the football over. They really haven't ever turned the football over with Sam Hartman. I think they were 8th in the country in turnover margin last year. They're top 10 again this year in sort of a smaller sample size, but they're doing a good job protecting the football. And their red zone defense is tied for 11th in the country right now. Again, maybe a little bit of a small sample size there, but historically, they've been pretty good red zone defense-wise, and that's an area where Syracuse is just going to have to capitalize every time they get the football in the red zone in this game because they're already in a game that's probably going to turn into a shootout, and you worry, do they have the horses to compete in a shootout? And the only way they're going to be able to compete in the shootout is by capitalizing in the red zone, which we know as Syracuse fans, I mean, it's been very up and down whether they do capitalize in the red zone.
So getting back to sort of a conversation we had a couple days ago with fourth downs, right?
Yeah.
You got to play for 7 every single drive. You have to. I mean, you can't 4th and 2. If you're in that same situation, you can't take the 3. You just can't because offensively on the other side, they're going to go for 7. They're going to get their 7s throughout the game. And you got to respond with a couple of 7s of your own. I mean, you talk about the red zone stuff. To me, I mean, most teams want to have an 80% red zone percentage. And what that means is not scoring on 80% of your red zone drives. You need to get 80% of the possible points. So every time you're in the red zone, let's say you're in the red zone 5 times, that's 35 possible points for your red zone. This team needs to have probably close to 85% if they want to win this football game, because Wake Forest on the other end is going to, they're going to take advantage of their red zone opportunities.
Yeah, they're holding teams to 66% right now. Also, they have one of the best fourth down defenses. Again, pretty small sample size, but 3rd in the country in fourth down defense percentage right now is Wake Forest. So that's going to be key when they do go for it on fourth down. Syracuse has been terrible on fourth down offense for the past couple years. We've talked about how predictable it is at times. I almost just wish they'd throw it every once in a while on fourth down, which I know is like, you know, it's like the Russell Wilson play. You don't throw when you only need to pick up a couple yards and you've got a guy like Marshawn Lynch back there. We have a Sean Tucker, but it's just so predictable at times watching them on fourth down.
Well, here's how you take the predictability out of it. You've got 2 runners back there now. You've got Trader. You've got Sean Tucker. I mean, get a little bit of play action. You can get a little bootleg. Maybe, I mean, you can have Garrett Schrader throw a little 2-yard pass too. I think he's capable of doing that. I don't want to see a direct screen, but you've got 2 guys, read option stuff, RPO. I think that's what will make their fourth down attempts that much more effective moving forward. Same thing with their goal line stuff. I have a lot of faith in Garrett Schrader getting outside the pocket, making stuff happen with his feet.
Right. And by the way, I know it's been talked about and people have read about it, but Wake's offense, just in terms of what they put up, point production so far this year, 35 plus in every game, or at least 35 points in every game this year. Old Dominion, 42-10 win. Norfolk State, 41-16 win. Okay, that's fine. You took care of the easy ones. But beat Florida State 35-14, just manhandled them. At Virginia, really impressive win, 37-17. And then last week against Louisville, they went on that last second field goal, 37-34. So they are putting up points. And I know Syracuse's defense might be the best defense they've faced so far. It probably is statistically. But I would say best case for us is we hold them to, 24, 27 points. And obviously the lower the score is, the more it favors Syracuse. We do not want to get in a shootout, but it's going to be inevitable because this offense is legit one of the better offenses in the country, not just the ACC.
It'll be the best one that Syracuse has faced so far. Their defense. You're going to find out a lot of things. And I think part of the reason why you saw Liberty struggle was they didn't tailor a great game plan for Malik Willis in that one. And I mean, you saw everything with Malik Willis. It was long passes to the outside of the numbers with him. I think Wake Forest is going to try to work the middle of the field, take some downfield shots, really, really challenge these Syracuse defensive backs as well with Sam Hartman too. And another thing here, you brought it up a little bit earlier. The turnover margin is something that scares me a lot with this upcoming game because
That's how you win games as an underdog too. Is getting turnovers, you need flipping the field.
Yes, you need to get some of those fluky plays to go your way. Here's the thing, though, is that you've got a Wake Forest defense, top 20 in both sacks and tackles for loss. That's given Syracuse a little bit of trouble against Florida State, against Rutgers. We've seen how that's played a factor. But the interceptions, they've got 7 of them already this season, 10th in the country. And we've seen Garrett Schrader. He's had a number of turnover-worthy plays that have not landed as turnovers. He's gotten a little lucky on some of these throws. Wake Forest isn't going to let you get lucky. So that stuff is going to have to be shored up. You're going to need to throw the ball at some point in this game. And we'll see if they have the game plan to do it.
Right. The other thing that I think is valuable when you're trying to pull off a quote-unquote upset here, time of possession, because Wake Forest runs this up-tempo style. They want to be in the spread. They want to do their sort of
sounds familiar
option. Yeah, well, it used to be that way at Syracuse. Now I think if you're Cuse, you lean into what you got, which is we're slowing things down. We're going to try and run the ball. We're just going to try and give our defense as much time off the field as possible. Because when the defense is on the field, while Wake might score quickly on some scenarios, they're going to be running, they're going to be hustling, they're going to be huffing and puffing because they like to get up to the line. They like to go, go, go. And I just don't want it to start out with a Syracuse 3 and out, or maybe Wake goes down the field, scores quickly, Syracuse 3 and out. Then Wake comes right back onto the field, and boom, it's down 14-0 because the defense, which we all think is good, and I think they can sort of hang with Wake Forest here and minimize them a little bit. You just don't want them to be in a situation where they're already tired early, and then Wake gets up big, and then they keep getting the ball after a short 3 and out or quick drive. So Syracuse needs to do as much as they can to try to make that time of possession battle pretty even. And in theory, they should win the time of possession because Wake's not a team that holds the football for that long, but they are going to tire out the Syracuse defense the way they play.
I think it comes down to, like, there needs to be almost a sort of something that levels it out here too, in terms of when you talk about time of possession, because to make a track and field analogy, I know Justin Knight's going to appreciate this one, but when you run a mile-long race, right, it's going to be a longer race, but you don't have to necessarily exert as much energy as you do when you run a 400-meter race. When you run a 400-meter race, you are sprinting for 400 meters. That's going to take out way more of you than a mile race, where you've got a little portion that you're actually full-out sprinting. A 400-meter race, you're sprinting the entire time. Syracuse is going to be in a 400-meter race here against Wake Forest because, it's going to be a shorter race, but you're going to have to be running that entire time, getting to the line of scrimmage. I mean, dare I say it, so many teams have used this against you. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of fake cramps this week. Like, seriously, it's bitten you in the ass so many times when you're trying to play tempo. Why don't you give some teams a little taste of your own medicine? Like, you should be don't be surprised if you see it. Okay.
Right.
And listen, I know there's not going to be any boo birds in the Carrier Dome when it happens too.
Wouldn't that be funny if the roles are reversed there? I guess it's good they have AC in the dome now. That's a big plus when you're going up against an up-tempo team. It's funny how like they go down the road to Florida State and it's like, we haven't really played in these conditions when normally Syracuse is so used to playing in muggy conditions, obviously, with the dome before they had the AC. All right, guys, want to remind you about rockauto.com. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto, which is the best place to get new auto parts and sort of repair your car right now. You just visit their website, rockauto.com. You can get it in your pocket. It's super easy to access, super easy interface. So why choose up to 30% more, 50% more, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership when you can go to rockauto.com today? It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. I've gone to them strictly just Rock Auto for all my car part needs since they've become sort of a partner of this podcast, and their prices are always very, very low, reliably low for every customer. It's always been very easy to use and just takes a lot less time than going to that auto parts store. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Again, put Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you to rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com.
Also, it's been an amazing start to the college and NFL seasons. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college action this fall. With a new and updated site and interface with even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for all things football. So head on over to the website or use your phone to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code Locked On, and that's how you're going to get that 50% bonus. Again, 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use that promo code Locked On. Football, basketball, boxing, your favorite Vegas casino games, and now, Tim, we've got some MLB playoffs as well that you can wager on BetOnline.ag. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for this season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Very pumped for the MLB playoffs. But let's continue with this conversation about Wake. Let's talk about Syracuse's offense, how they match up against Wake's defense, which is a little bit more positive of a discussion, I think, because we're definitely worried about the opposite. We know Wake's going to put up points. I do think Syracuse can put up points against Wake based on what we saw against Florida State in the second half. And again, we've preached this week, but hopefully they stick to what they were doing in the second half, getting Schrader out of the pocket, designing a game plan that is more oriented to sort of fit his strengths. But Wake is a defense that is allowing a lot of yards right now and allowing a lot of points as well. And that's how Syracuse has to win this game. They have to score early and then sort of get the crowd involved and have that home field advantage on their side. And like I said, milk as much of the possession as you can when you do have the football so your defense doesn't tire out.
So the last two games for Wake Forest, they've allowed 500 yards of offense in each of them. 506 against Virginia, 522 against Louisville. This is a defense that you can move the football on, okay? But here's the difference. You have to diversify your offense if you want to have success with it. And let me give you a little bit of rationale why. So Virginia, I mentioned 506 yards of offense there, but they only came away with 17 points. Why? Well, you had 400 yards through the air. You weren't a threat on the ground. Only 99 yards rushing the football. Yeah. Meanwhile, Louisville, 522 yards of offense in that game. They scored 34 points, 300 through the air, 200 on the ground. Garrett Schrader is going to have to throw the football in this game. I want to see him get out of the pocket, cut the field in half. I mean, we say it every single show. It's so easy. It's so apparent. It literally simplifies a complex offense. And it works, too. You've seen it work, and then they go away from it. That's the part that I don't understand with this team, is they find winning solutions, and then they go away from them. It'll never make sense to me. It will never make sense to me.
Right. And, we talked about this yesterday, the screen passes, how, maybe you could look at Schrader's numbers, and they're a little inflated because of screen passes. I don't really care. Keep doing screen passes. That's catering to his style.
What do you finish with passing wise against Florida State? 150 something yards?
Yeah, something like that. It's pretty solid.
Only 17 were on screen passes. So he
Okay.
does have to move the ball. He's getting some of those chunk plays. Like I can't remember the exact yardage on the Quealy touchdown, but that was like 25 to 30 yards right there. Again, I don't know if those sort of plays are going to be open. I don't think he's going to have a throw as easy as that one in this upcoming game. He's going to have to move the ball down the field. He's going to probably have to hit 1 or 2 deep shots in this game.
Right. Which it gets into a sticky area because we talk about, all right, let's not make Schrader do things that we know that he can't really do. But at the same time, you have to establish that as a threat.
Yeah.
Like they did when they threw deep to Alford to start the Liberty game. It sort of sets a signal. All right, I know your game plan to stop us on the ground because we've got a dual threat quarterback and this great running back, but don't forget that we're still going to do this every once in a while. So you got to stay on your toes.
Well, the thing too, when he rolls out of the pocket, that's when he's actually having really good success throwing the football too.
Yeah.
That's when he's getting his 15, 17-yard chunk plays there and letting his receivers do a little bit of run after the catch too.
Yeah, they can't get open initially. When the quarterback's scrambling, then they're improvising and they're getting more open. That's the sad thing.
And I think some of the design stuff too, like I want to see Anthony Quealy lined up left side, okay? I want to see Schrader get the snap, roll out to his right, and Quealy coming across the formation. It's been there.
Yeah.
Him, right. Courtney Jackson, they've been able to pick up 15, 20-yard chunks like that by getting Schrader out of the pocket on designed plays.
Yeah. So Wake's defense, they're allowing 252 yards passing, 101st in the country. A little bit better run defense, 137 yards allowed for 63rd in the country. So that goes to show you, all right, they're probably going to sell out on stopping the run. Maybe we might struggle to run the football at times here. But they should, again, like Florida State, be able to hit some deep shots, be able to hit some big passes over the middle if they use Schrader in the right way, if they get him outside the pocket, some of those plays you're discussing. I think we need Schrader to probably finish with 200 to 250 passing yards, which would be career highs for him at Syracuse. But it's out there against a Wake team that has been giving up a lot of passing yards. You talked about those numbers and their recent opponents. Like, I know Schrader hasn't been spotless accuracy-wise, but he should be able to get into the 200 to 300 neighborhood in this game in terms of passing yardage.
Well, this is a Wake Forest team that lets you move the ball. They're 12th in first downs allowed in the ACC. 12th.
Yeah.
Bottom 3 in the conference right there. You can move the ball against Wake Forest. The thing is, though, is that they've got the ability to make the splash plays as well and get those interceptions. To me, this is going to come down to, does Garrett Schrader protect the football? Because he has had a number of plays that should have resulted in interceptions this year that frankly haven't. Wake Forest is not going to let you get away with that. So can he protect the football in this game when he does get the license to throw? Also, penalties, I think, are going to play a big factor in this one as well. Wake Forest has the second fewest penalties in the ACC. They're top 30 in the country. By the way, I'll give you one guess. Who is the most disciplined team in the country in penalties? It'll make a lot of sense to you.
Oh, man. I don't want to miss this now. Is it BC? No.
Nope.
Well, you only
in
gave
the
me
country.
one guess,
The entire country.
Oh, in the country.
It is in the entire country, yeah.
Gosh. Alabama? I don't know.
No. Army.
Dang it. And that's who they're playing next, right? Wake? Their schedule is actually...
Are they playing Army next? That's fine.
Yeah, their schedule, I mean, if they beat Cuse, they've got Army and then Duke. So they could be 7-0 here, which I don't know if they've ever done that in their program's history. But yeah, they've got a pretty easy schedule coming up. Hopefully Syracuse spoils that, though.
A little tidbit there that sort of makes everything tie together. But anyway, Syracuse actually has gotten a little bit better with the penalties. They were awful the first couple of weeks, but they have certainly improved the last handful of weeks as well. And some of them you're not going to get too upset about. Like that roughing the passer on Marlowe Wax, not going to get too upset about it. Yeah. I don't think you're going to get that call for the remainder of the season. And then the face masks, I mean, that's just hand to combat stuff that hand in the wrong place, wrong time. It's the false starts. It's the illegal formations. That stuff is what peeves you. And that stuff has all been trimmed significantly over the last 2 games.
Yeah, and I will say, Dino made me confident that he was going to correct that in some of his comments a couple weeks ago, and it's kind of panned out that way. Now, maybe you could say a downfall to that is Marlowe Wax maybe would have pushed Jordan Travis out of bounds if they weren't focusing on this so much in practice and stuff, like we're assuming, because it definitely felt like that was in his head as he was trying to track him down there. But all right, that's going to wrap
say
up
this.
our
One last thing I want to get in here.
Mm-hmm.
If Sterling Gilbert doesn't stick to the game plan that's been working, I don't know if he's going to be the offensive coordinator the next week. Like, I'm serious. You've been given the blueprint.
You were definitely going to come on Monday with some heat. I mean,
you have been given the blueprint of how to have success with Garrett Schrader. If you abandon it, there's no reason for you to be calling the plays. There's none.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's a big game for him. They should put up points.
Hand it off to Kirk Martin. Like, seriously.
Yeah. Can we get Sean Lewis back? That'd be great. I know that's not possible, but yeah.
That'd be something.
All right. Well, that's our Thursday podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every single day. We're here with you guys, counting down the days until Wake Forest. Got our Wake preview. More thoughts on them tomorrow. Our picks. We'll dive into the prop shop. We'll get to Bundo's digits. It's a full Wake preview on tomorrow's show, so be on the lookout for that wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube. Rate and review the show. Drop some YouTube comments if you got some things that we'd like to discuss, and we'll talk